Hi everyone! Today I'm excited to be sharing another Splitcoaststampers tutorial. They asked me to do a tutorial on painting with coffee, which is a favorite of mine. I took part in a Splitcoast challenge a while back on painting with coffee, and I really enjoyed it. And interestingly enough, in my art class, I take an art class just for fun, and we were painting with coffee in art class because there is an artist from Elmhurst, Illinois, which is where I'm from, who had an exhibit at our local art museum, and she paints with coffee. And there's in fact a large coffee painting of hers hanging in the elementary school and in our public library as well. So painting with coffee is fun, and it just kind of seems like a local town thing for me, so I just love to do it, and I do it all the time. And so making cards with it just comes naturally, especially coffee cards. Coffee is another passion of mine, so watercolor and coffee together is just amazing for me. So we're going to make this card here, which uses a stamp set called Coffee Cafe from Stampin' Up. It's an awesome stamp set, and I thought we would use that because it is perfect for coffee. But you can paint even freehand with coffee, as I did here with these birch trees. And you can use other fun stamp sets. Here's another one featuring birds called Best Birds. You can freehand a little coffee cup. And I did a giant coffee cup in art class on some books. And I even painted some ballerinas in coffee at one time in my life. So I've got a lot of coffee paintings around my house. So we're going to do this one together, and I want to show you step by step how to get good results painting with coffee. Now, you're not going to just take your cup of coffee and paint directly from that, much as I would love to do that. You get better results and different depths of color when you use dried coffee that you have poured from the bottom of your pot. So at the end of the day, when I have a little tiny bit of coffee left in my coffee pot, I tend to pour some into different little containers. A little artist watercolor palette like this is perfect, or if you have a little tiny little shot glass type size cups, or any little tiny containers that you can pour a little bit of coffee into the bottom of, that would be perfect. And you're going to let it dry out, so you can't do it immediately. You have to kind of plan ahead. You can paint with coffee straight, but you're just not going to get the tones of color that you're going to get with dried coffee. See how I've got lights and very dark, all from these little dried up coffee wells here. So I poured coffee in here one day, let it dry out. The next day, a little bit of coffee left in my pot. So this is several days worth of little bits of coffee drying out, and you're just going to kind of use them up as you go. So this is just straight black coffee. You can use espresso too, or even some darker espresso powders if you wanted to do that. But you don't even have to. These are what I've used here is just straight coffee, and I just let it dry out in my little wells here. You want to choose a paintbrush that you like. I use an aqua painter. It is what I'm used to and I use constantly. And you can freehand, like I said, but if you want a little help with your images, you can use a stamp. So I'm going to show you how to do this stamp here, the Coffee Cafe, and I'm using some watercolor paper. I've cut this at 4 3/4 by 3 1/2. And the first thing I want to do is just kind of do a wash across the background. So I'm going to add a little bit of water to my aqua painter by squeezing, and I'm just going to pick up some coffee. And I'm just going to do a nice little fast wash on the background. The fun thing about painting with coffee is that your friends, when you deliver this, maybe put even a coffee gift card in there, are going to smell the coffee for a little while anyway. If you keep it in your desk for too long, that smell goes away. Now you can let this dry, or you can heat it to dry it faster. That's what I'm going to do. Okay, now you want to choose a light color. I'm going to use Crumb Cake. And I'm going to ink up my stamp, but then I'm going to stamp off onto my scrap paper here to get a lot of that ink off. And then I'm going to stamp directly onto my watercolor paper. So you can still see that outline, but it's barely there. So I can use it as a reference for painting, but it's not going to be in my way. I want 2 coffee cups because I'm talking about sharing coffee with a friend. So I'm going to put 2 coffee cups on my image here. I'm going to cover up this first one with a Post-it, stamp off, and I'm going to go slightly up and to the right. There we go. And now I've got 2 coffee cups. And now we're going to paint. Now I like to paint with a slight, not too wet of a brush, and I'm going to go over here where I already kind of gotten it wet, and I'm going to pick up some coffee, and then I'm going to start on the left side. I want that to be my darker side, and you're going to add your coffee just like you are adding watercolor. See how dark that is compared to the wash I did. You've got a lot of different depths of color. Once again, I'm going to heat this because I want to stamp on top. I wanted to make sure the bottoms were dry because I want to anchor these coffee cups to the table with some shadows. Okay, I'm done with my coffee. So what do you think? I think I got a lot of tones and it looks great. So we're going to add the stamps for the lids and the sentiment. For that, I've chosen to use, of course, early espresso. Make sure your image is completely dry because you don't want it to start to bleed. I think I'm good. Now, stamping on watercolor sometimes is tricky. It can be hard to get a nice crisp image, so that's okay for me on this one because I have watercolored my image and I can go over it with some more ink and my aqua painter, and that is going to help to sell that watercolor look anyway because it's going to soften it up. Now to go over it again, I've made a mask with a piece of Post-it note. I'm going to put that on this one. Okay, that looks great and it looks watercolored and beautiful, but what about those words? Now we don't want to mess up the words because you cannot go back with a brush and fix them, maybe with a marker, fine tip end of your marker, but let's try and do it right with this stamp. So what I thought would be a great idea is to use a stamp positioning tool. This is the Stamparatus, and there are several different brands on the market that will do this. So I'm going to place my image where I want it here, and then I'm going to go ahead and position this exactly where I want it. Okay, so I want to go over this again. This is what I was talking about. You might miss, like I got the D here and I didn't ink up the H very well. But with the stamping positioning tool, we can fix that right up. What was it, the D I missed? There. There you have it. There I've got my happiness is a cup of coffee shared with a friend. So now to finish off the card, I mounted it to a piece of early espresso cardstock cut 1/4 inch larger, so it is at 4 3/4 by 5. And because cardstock curls when you use watercolor, I'm going to use a little more adhesive than I normally would. For just a little added interest, I am using a little piece of corrugated paper that's been cut like a heart. It's a really fun little embellishment. and some, I think this is Soft Sky cardstock that I've mounted my base on. I'm just going to add a little bit more to the front. It's a lot of brown, and this way I can add a little more color. And a linen thread bow. So I hope that you enjoyed painting with coffee. I hope that you'll give it a try. It's really fun. It smells great. And I think when you give this to somebody, they're going to really appreciate that you made this with coffee. It's going to be a wow factor. And they're just going to love the idea. Maybe put a gift card in there for your local coffee shop, or invite them to meet you for some coffee, catch up on what's been going on. Life can get crazy and we sometimes forget to do that. Here is my little bow. And I'm going to attach that with the glue dot, and I will be all done. So please leave me a comment. Let me know what you think about painting with coffee. Maybe tell me if you've tried it and other things you've painted with. Maybe some teas and things. There you have it. Here are some other cards painted with coffee. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.